Hello and welcome to another edition of Fisher Football Focus. I'm your host, James Bailey. This past Saturday, Fisher participated in the 11th Annual Courage Bowl, a game benefiting the children of Camp Good Days. Last year, the Cardinals traveled to the College of Brockport for the game and pulled out a 36-20 victory to start the season 2-0. This season, the Cardinals brought the game back to Growney Stadium to face Brockport, but faced a different challenge, trying to avoid starting the season 0-3. Let's take a look at the highlights.
The Courage Bowl is an important game, not only for the two teams on the field, but for the young kids of Camp Good Days that demonstrate courage each day. Kids from Camp Good Days are named honorary captains and cheerleaders for the game and participate in practices throughout the week. However, as soon as the game starts, the camaraderie ends and it's game on. Brockport got on the board first with this Wayne Bosnell touchdown pass to Dan Andrews. On the Cardinals' next drive, quarterback Danny Caden, starting his first game of the season, drove the Cardinals down to the Brockport 27 before Brockport's Ed Sariano forced a strip sack. Sariano would scoop the ball and return it 58 yards for a touchdown, and Brockport would go up 14-0 early on. Early in the second quarter, another Fisher drive stalled, and it looked as though Brockport had all of the momentum. But not so fast. Punter Brandon Fuentes takes it himself for the 55-yard touchdown to put Fisher on the board. After a Brockport touchdown drive, James Chambers would score on a 2-yard touchdown run to bring the score to 21-14 at the half. Then, on their first drive of the second half, the Cardinals drew even thanks to a Caton touchdown pass to Bobby Campese. Later in the third quarter, with Fisher rolling, Caton hit Chambers, who makes an impressive leaping catch and takes it 67 yards to the house. Heading into the fourth, the Cardinals were up 28-21. Consecutive Dan Andrews touchdowns, one on the ground and one through the air via Bosnell, put the Eagles up by 7. However, this Caton touchdown run would once again knot the score. Then, with just over 2 minutes left in regulation and Brockport driving, Alec Mortellaro comes up with a huge interception to give the Cardinals hope. Fisher would bring the clock down to 2 seconds to set up Taylor Byrne to be a hero with a 27-yard field goal that could win the game. Brownell Middleton had different plans though, blocking the kick and scooping it up. He would run all the way down past the Fisher 30 before Byrne would finally bring him down to force overtime. On the first possession of overtime, Brockport took a shot at the end zone, only for Mortellaro to come up with yet another clutch interception. The interception gave Cardinals a chance to win on a field goal. Byrne had another chance to be the hero. However, his kick would be rolled wide left and set up another overtime. On the first possession of overtime, Caton would bring the ball into the end zone to put the Cardinals up 42-35. On Brockport's possession, it's Andrews again, plunging in from 4 yards out. The extra point would force a third overtime. We'll let Dave Yates take it from here.
He missed the kick! He missed the extra point! Tyler Purtis' kick goes wide right! And St. John Fisher, unbelievable!
The final score would end up being 42-41 in favor of the Cardinals. The Cardinals would improve to 11-0 in Courage Bowls, 1-2 on the season, and 1-1 in the Empire 8.
Up next, head coach Paul Vosberg will be sitting down with me, so stay tuned.
Preparing today reduces the consequences of a disaster tomorrow.
Hi, my name is Miles, and you're watching Cardinal Television.
Welcome back to Fisher Football Focus. I'm joined now by head football coach Paul Vosberg. And Coach, we're happy to have you back.
Thank you for having me again.
So, Coach, first let's just talk about the end of that game. Have you ever won a game on such circumstances or in such wacky circumstances as you saw in all those overtimes?
I don't know if I've ever won one where somebody's missed the extra point at the end of the game from the other team. I have been on where we've kicked the field goal or we've kicked the extra point to win the game and that, but to have the other opponent miss the extra point at the end of the game when I don't know in the 40 years of coaching if that's happened.
So obviously there was a couple missed field goals on your end even to start that up, and there was just a lot of wacky stuff going on towards the end of that game. How do you keep the team kind of focused on the sideline when you get the extra point blocked and then you're going into overtime and miss the extra point? You know, obviously the game has kept on extending. How do you kind of coach through that scenario?
Well, that's not easy because we set ourselves up to win that football game. The defense had come up with a big interception, and the score was tied, as you know, at that time, 35-35. The defense comes up with a big pick. We then get on the field offensively and drive it down the field and eat up the clock at the same time. Used our timeouts. Brockport used some timeouts so that maybe if they got the ball back, they would have a little time on the clock. But we were able to milk it down to 2 seconds. So you've set yourself up to win the game with 2 seconds to go on a relatively short field goal that you think your kicker should be able to make, and unfortunately doesn't. So that's a big downer when you've done all that work in preparation to win a game, and you got a chance to put it away, and especially a come from behind victory for us. That was tough. So we just need to keep our focus. And the good thing was our kids did keep their focus, and then we had another opportunity. So now we not only shot ourselves once, but then we get into overtime. Our defense came up big again with another interception by the Mortallero, and Alex did a great job there, intercepts in the corner of the end zone. Gives us an opportunity now that all we've got to do is score, touchdown or field goal, and this game is over with. And again, our offense does a nice job. They take it from the 25. They get it up into a relatively short, almost an extra point kick. And unfortunately, we pushed that one off to the left. They didn't block this one. They blocked the first one. This one we pushed off to the left. So that was tough. That was really tough. And then of course, they came out and scored. And well, we got the ball back and scored first, and they came back to tie it up. And now their kicker had the misfortunes of he pushes it off to the right.
I have to ask, who called for that fake punt? That was a big play in the game. I think a big turning point to definitely start to get you guys back into it. At that point, you're down 14-0 in the second quarter. Looked like you had to punt it back to Brockport, and they had been driving all night. So who was behind that call?
Well, it's really the punter was. We have that play in that he has the ability to run the ball, and usually it's off to the right-hand side where he usually rolls his punts to. When we came off the field earlier in the first quarter, we said they're overloading to our right, their left, with the idea they're going to try to stop him from his roll punt, his rugby-type style punt, and try to get in his face. And on the back side, there was only 4. And at that time, we said if we do see a run, it's going to be to the left. It won't be to the right. And he went out on the field, and we're down 14-0. And he took a step, and he saw them all going to the right and running down the field. And Brandon then said, "Hey, I got it." So he's got the speed, and so it was his decision, and he made the right decision for us, and so on. So he did a great job.
It's a lot of trust in your punter to put him in that situation. You figured that a lot of times some guys would want to run that play every time, but that was a great play call.
That was a good decision by him, yes.
So we talked a little bit last week towards the end about slowing down Dan Andrews on Brockport, and that would have been a big key for you guys. He did end up having 242 combined offensive yards, 4 touchdowns. But however, you guys did counter with Tony Fusco and James Chambers having big performances. They combined for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. So what are your thoughts on that? Were you happy with the way it was balanced, or would you rather your defense kind of slowed them down a little bit more?
Well, you got to give credit. Mr. Andrews is a really fine football player. We knew that from the year before. We struggled with him a year ago. I think a year ago he had close to 160 yards rushing against us and had some nice runs and so on. And so we knew we were going to have our hands full again. This year I think they did a better job of utilizing him in the passing game, and that really hurt us, him coming out of the backfield. And that's a credit to the Brockport coaching staff that they saw some things that we were doing, and they attacked it with him, and they were going to attack it with him. He's, of their 400 total yards of offense, he has half of it or more than half of it, and so on, which rightfully should be. And I think Coach Kramer, though, on the same token, did a great job in utilizing our 2 kids, both Chambers and Fusco, and utilizing them in our game, running and passing, and that allowed us to kind of even it up with the backs.
This past week, we talked a little bit last week about penalties. This past week, you did have 9 penalties for 95 yards, so a little bit better. We saw you were a little upset with some of the stuff that the refs were talking about during the game. What do you think about that? Do you think you're getting a little bit better in that, or you still wish you could eliminate those a little bit more?
Yeah, we got to eliminate some of those penalties. Again, when you have penalties like that, you're losing field position and that kind of hurt us a little bit. In that we can't have that. We can't put ourselves behind the 8 ball because of penalties and those are things you control. A lot of those penalties you control, and so. We need to do a better job with that. The first game of this season, I think we had 1 or 2, and then the last 2, we were 10 the week before and 9 this week. That's just too many. 95 yards this past week, over 100 the week before. You can't do that. That's shooting yourself in the foot, and we've got to be better than that.
Finally, how big is this next game in the Empire 8? Buffalo State 1-2 overall, but they're 0-2 in the Elite. They've lost to Alfred and Morrisville. However, we did mention it is their homecoming, so they will be bringing their best, their first home game of the year. How big is this? Obviously 1-1, still very much in the Empire 8 race. How big is this game for your team to kind of stay in that race and stay looking towards the postseason?
I think it's a big game, and I think all the Empire 8 games are big games right now, and everybody's got a pretty good football team, so you better come ready to play week in and week out. And it's a big game, and it's the biggest one of the year so far because it's one we're playing this weekend.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on yet again, Coach, and very good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much for having me again.
After the break, I'll be joined by senior captain Jordan Andrews and starting running back Tony Fusco, so stay here.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. You up? What'd you dream about? Me? JK. Text me back. I'll keep texting till you wake up. Are your parents home later? Is this something I did? Exclamation point, we're in a huge fight right now. This isn't a joke. Hello? Text me.
I'm joined now by senior nose guard Jordan Andrews and sophomore running back Tony Fusco. Glad to have you guys on the show.
Glad to be here.
So, Jordan, we'll start with you. Obviously, you were on the defense on that last drive. Can you tell the emotions of that defense as Brockport was driving down there in the second overtime, and definitely the emotion you guys felt after that missed extra point that led to the win?
Well, I can tell you the first emotion was we were tired. The second overtime, it's been a long game to that point. And honestly, it was a little like, we have to do this again. Mm-hmm. After the whole game, we stopped and we didn't do a very good job during the game. We let up 41 points, but after that point, it was like, well, let's try to take care of this now. It wasn't really during the game so much. You don't feel so much of emotion. It's more of like, just let's do our job now, and we'll take care of the emotion part afterwards. But during that final drive, it's like, let's just take care of business right now. And man, after they missed that field goal, it was just elation, just happy.
What did you guys feel after they scored the touchdown? Did you guys think all over again?
I was like, well, the first thought I had was, we're going to be out in defense, so let's we have to take care of business without coming out. But they missed that field goal, man. It was pretty awesome.
So Tony, you yourself had a great game this past week, 152 rushing yards. A little bit, shakier the first couple weeks, especially week 1 against Thomas More. What really clicked with you this past week that got you back to peak form?
Well, I mean, all week we've been focusing on just executing our plays, doing our job, and going out there and just beating up the other team. We failed to do that against Thomas More, clearly, and even the next week too. But all week in practice, we were just watching film, doing the right things. We were practicing hard. We had a good week in practice that week. And our line blocked incredible. I can't take all the credit. And because if I have no line, I'm not going to make any plays. And so we did our jobs.
So you and James Chambers combined had a great game. You guys had 289 total combined offensive yards. Chambers had 2 touchdowns. What do you guys think about, what's your chemistry between you two guys? You guys are kind of have different styles. You're more of a bruiser forward, and James is a little bit more of a receiving back, quicker guy. So how do you guys kind of work together to kind of make the offense the best it can be?
I think we are great. We complement each other well. Like you said, I'm a little more a bruiser. I'll run in between the tackles, try to get the hard yards, and hopefully it opens up the outside for Chambers, and he can do a lot of different things from the slot and from running outside zone and all of that kind of stuff. It's nice to have us both in the backfield at the same time. We did that a lot more this game, and it seemed to work for us. They don't know who to key on, whether we're going to go inside or outside. It just creates a lot more options for our team.
All right. We'll go back to you, Jordan. Jordan Andrews, your defense had to face another Andrews, Dan Andrews, right, and a very good Brockport running back. He racked up 242 total offensive yards, 4 touchdowns. So you guys did end up winning the game, but you gave up the big game day to Andrews. What are you going to key on in that game to kind of what are you going to take away from that?
Well, the first thing is we need to tackle better. If you saw a lot, there was a couple times where he would juke us out. We wouldn't force fold inside out, use a sideline as a defender. We would just come in hot, wouldn't really break down. He would just kind of run around us. Wrapping up, tackling is a big thing. And honestly, on defense, it's lining up correctly and reading the right keys. A lot of the couple of throwbacks, he had 2 touchdowns on the throwbacks, if you remember. There's a lot of times the safety gets sucked over by the rollout motion, and then the running back would just kind of slip out. So we just got to make sure that we're reading our keys and we're getting lined up and just doing our job.
Well, obviously this last week was the Courage Bowl, a big game for not only you guys but the kids at Camp Good Days. Jordan, that was your 4th, and Tony, that was your 2nd. So how does this one? Can you describe what this game means to you? Not only this game, but just the game in general. How your experience has been in that game as a Cardinal.
Well, it's been a good experience. Obviously, there's a lot of regular season games, and 9 out of 10 of them are just they're games. You got to make sure you do your job and win each one. Do the best you can to win. But this one's got a little more weight on it. We're doing it for kids that unfortunately can't play football like we can, and we can't do much for cancer besides that, besides volunteering and stuff. But this is a big thing that we can do that contributes towards cancer research and just making these kids' lives a little better. Unfortunately, a lot of them, they don't really last very long, and it's very unfortunate. And just to be able to do something like this, just to give them a couple happy moments, and just to make them feel good for even a day, even if we can just do it for a day, it's something great. And personally, it just makes me feel good. Honestly, just to help these kids out, help Coach Merv out, it's just a great thing.
Tony, how's your experience been with the game?
It's like you said, it's been awesome. I was at Albany before I came to St. John Fisher, and we never really did anything like this. So it's cool to be a part of something like this. And like he was saying before, just it feels great to be able to just hang out with the kids and to enjoy their company and have them come watch our practices. And just it shows them that there's more to life, and you can be happy and just enjoy each day as it comes. And also what he was saying about how we can contribute to the research and everything like that, that's just an incredible thing that we can do.
All right, and finally, next week, Buffalo State. This past weekend, you guys were able to get your first win, improved to 1-2. Buffalo State also 1-2, an E8 opponent. Do you guys think that you kind of have this turnaround? You're going to start getting back on pace, start playing more the St. John Fisher football that we've been accustomed to seeing in the past few seasons?
I think we do. I think we got that fire back. We found whatever needed us to get going. We found out this game. And Buff State's a great competitor. We played them last year, and it was a very good game. I remember they hit very hard. And so it's going to be a tough one. They got some good returners on defense, and I know they got some good people on offense too. So it's going to be a tough game. We just got to stick to our strategy and just play to the best of our ability.
And Jordan, you're obviously the senior captain, so play a big role in keeping up team morale. Do you think, what have you seen in the team? Do you think that there's a lot more excitement now that you're coming off the win, and that you guys are going to be able to go forward and start ripping off more wins in a row?
Oh, definitely. Anytime you can win a game like the Courage Bowl, especially in the fashion we did, spirits are lifted. You start out the season 0-2, and a lot of people want to point fingers, but the biggest thing that we can do is just make sure we get better at doing our jobs. And my main job as a captain, I think, is to make sure we stay together while doing that and make sure we're all getting better. And I think, as you can see, these games we've been improving. Obviously, Thomas More, we got blown out. We got a little better against Cortland, and finally against Brockport, we were able to get a win. And so I think that going forward, the biggest thing we can do is just stay together as a team, offense, defense, special team, just make sure we mesh as a unit, stay together, and just keep getting better at our jobs. It's a lot easier to do that, stay together, and be happy when you win. Obviously, when you lose, it's tough, but it's a good lesson for life even. Sometimes in life things aren't going to work out the way you want, but the biggest thing is just keep moving forward, stay together with your family, with your friends, and this is a good analogy for that. And I think going forward, we're going to be a lot better. Next week against Buff State, like Tony said, we got a tough opponent. They're 1-2, but so are we. So 1-2 looks a lot different both ways. They got a good running back. Trey Jones is a good running back. Got a good offensive line. Their quarterback's a decent player. I know that. So just like last year, it'll be a tough game, I think. Definitely one we can win. But coming off the excitement of the Brockport game, spirits are lifted. I think we'll be all right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for being on, and good luck this weekend.
Well,
Thank you.
Coming up next, we'll have offensive coordinator Rob Kramer on, so stay tuned.
What gets you moving?
Because when you get moving an hour a day,
You fuel your body.
And your mind. Get up and play an hour a day, Doc.
check out how to be a player at letsmove.gov. That's www.letsmove.gov.
Welcome back to Fisher Football Focus. I'm now joined by offensive coordinator Rob Kramer, and we're happy to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So this week you put up 445 yards offensively, finally a big breakthrough after a couple shaky performances the first 2 weeks. Did you change anything in your offense specifically that led to that bigger performance, or was it just better execution by your guys?
I believe we've really focused on the last couple of weeks of getting better fundamentally. I'm sure Coach Vosberg's touched base on that week in and week out, getting better fundamentally, and that being a major focus. But essentially, we've had similar game plans. I think we executed better as a whole. We kind of really took some things that we were doing well the first 2 weeks each time and tweaked them a little bit to make sure we were getting better and better. We did some small little things, but really we were running our base offense. And at the end of the day, we executed. We got the ball in people's hands that needed the ball, and they made plays with it.
So week one, obviously you guys went out, were shut out, held to 205 yards. How hard is it as a coach to implement an offense all preseason, all season, and kind of have it go out there the first week and kind of land in a thud? Like, where do you go from there?
It's tough to swallow sometimes because, obviously the last couple of years we've had success on offense. I've been here since 2005, and I've never been a part of a team that's been shut out here. So that was kind of tough to swallow, me being in control of that. And, we said to ourselves, like, what do we have to do to be successful? And, we sat down as an offensive staff, we sat down as a full coaching staff, and really kind of looked, what do we have to do to be better? And I think that's something that, we've really kind of pressed on and talked to our kids about details. Details are important, whether it's on and off the field, and buying into those details which allow you to be successful. And, I think we said, going against our defense during the preseason, we did some nice things at times. And, we always were looking to refine things, but to go out and I don't want to say we were underprepared, because that's not how it happened when we went out to Thomas More. It's just we didn't play well. We didn't execute the fundamentals that we were taught. The details were not of major focus, and I think that was a major reason why we struggled that day.
Danny Caton started this week at quarterback. Matt Nathan started the first 2 games at quarterback. So what went into the change there of scenery? Obviously, you guys lost the first 2 games, won this past week, but Nathan wasn't necessarily putting up horrible numbers. So what kind of went into the change there?
It was a tough decision because Danny and Matt both competed last spring and in the fall for the position. Matt did better. Matt won the job. Matt was our choice going in to the first game, and Matt didn't play bad. I think some things that make it difficult as a quarterback, being the leader of the offense, I think a lot of pressure is put on the quarterback, whether you're putting up 500 yards of offense or 200 yards of offense. If things aren't working well as an offense, a lot of times it does fall on the quarterback. I think Matt did some very nice things from week 1 to week 2. In Cortland, Matt did some good things. We just didn't see the production of the offense as a whole improving all that much. And I think what we looked at from an offensive standpoint was we needed a spark. We needed, sometimes you got to change something up. People always say if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, it wasn't broken, but we needed to alter something, and that was our thought process on let's get a little tweak, let's see what it is, because Danny had played in the first 2 games. Right. It wasn't something that we weren't comfortable with, and we went with Danny to see if we get something going, and he played well, and it helped out Danny that some of our other players that we really anticipated having a very good year played well too.
He did start the last 2 games last year after Tyler Fenty went down, so he definitely did have that starting experience in there.
Correct. Yeah, Danny's a very good football player. He's very well recruited right out of high school, just like Matt was. And those two have competed for the last 3 years. Going into this year being their 4th year, they've battled with each other. The great thing about it is, they're both very good friends on and off the field, and there's a healthy competition there. And I had an honest conversation with both of them at the start of the year. One of you guys are going to play, and one's not going to. But don't take it as a personal hit. Take it as a, as a motivation to keep trying to make each other better. And I think that's what's happened. I think that's why we've had success.
You talked about some of the extra stresses the quarterback has, and you obviously have that experience. You played quarterback under Coach Fosberg here. Now, obviously, you're his offensive coordinator. How's your relationship with Coach changed from being a coach being a player to being now one of his assistant coaches?
It definitely has changed. Coach is a player's coach. He really listens to his players. He wants to get the most out of them. Coach is not an overly, vocal individual in terms of, he's not a rah-rah, in-your-face type guy. He's a very quiet leader, and I think, that was one of the things I took from him as a player. It was always, prepare yourself anytime like you're, going to be the starter. And, that's kind of how I took things were. And that, he wasn't a guy, he was always making sure you were checked in fundamentally and detailed. And that's how I've kind of taken a lot of things in terms of the way I teach my guys now. So that's a small little, feature that I've always brought with me from when I was playing with under Coach Vosberg, now coaching with him. Was really focused on those fundamentals and details. Our relationships, always been very solid, as a player, and then being brought on as a graduate assistant, and Coach giving me the opportunity to do that as a young coach, to learn the, ins and outs of being a coach and what it means to grind from 6 in the morning to 10 p.m. at night and breaking down film. And then, when I got an opportunity when our offensive coordinator stepped down a couple years ago to be able to be, offered the position to take over, it was a dream come true. And, I'm really excited about it. It's awesome to be able to go to work and do something you really like to do and really have a passion for. And, Coach was gracious enough to give me that opportunity. So, I've taken it in stride and really enjoyed it, but always remember, the small things that have gotten me where I am today.
Finally, let's move on to next week. You guys are facing Buffalo State. So far, they've forced 7 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles, so 3 turnovers a game average. But they've also allowed 417 yards and 562 yards, respectively, in their last 2 games, especially that 562-yard performance Morrisville put up on them. So a big turnover defense, but they're susceptible to giving up big plays. So how are you going to kind of try to exploit that offensively? You think they have any particular weakness?
They're a good football team. I was watching Morrisville again today against them this past weekend, and Morrisville had 3 big scoring plays, 2 out of a wildcat, formation, and 1 on a throwback to the running back, and that was 21 points that they had off of so-called trick plays. Buffalo State is a very good defense. They returned 9 starters from a year ago. The Conference Player of the Year on defense is back, and another All-American they had at defense. They're very big up front. They run well and they're physical. They are prone to the big play. That's how they've always been. But they know how to put a lot of pressure on an offense. I think one of the things we're going to have to be able to do is really establish the run and open up the pass with it to loosen them up inside in terms of being able to run a little bit more and throw. I think last year when we played Buffalo State, it was a very physical game, and we had to throw the ball to open up the run. I could see that happen again this year. We're really gonna work and focus on how we can run the football. We're very fortunate to have 2 very good running backs, so we're gonna try to find a way to get them the ball, and then we're gonna exploit them in the pass game with our wide receivers and our ability to get downfield. So we're gonna have a difficult task trying to figure out their defense, but I believe we'll be able to.
All right, well, Coach, thank you very much for being on, and very best of luck to you this upcoming weekend.
Thank you very much.
That's all the time we have to this edition of Fisher Football Focus. Join us again next week after the Cardinals take on the Buffalo State Bengals. For CTV, I'm James Bailey. Catch you next time.